In the South Park movie, there was a character named Gregory. Gregory was polished, articulate, and touted elite elementary school credentials.
I must say, I don't think I belong with these rogues. I attended school at Yardale and had a 4.0 grade point average. Yeah,
He was also an insufferable blowhard who only talked about politics.
The American government thinks it has the right to police the world.
It was his entire personality. Fast forward 26 years. South Park premieres its 27th season with its most successful episode in decades. Trump is portrayed as a Middle Eastern dictator having an affair with Satan, culminating in a now iconic segment full of wonderfully tasteless below-the-belt insults. The episode was celebrated as a much-needed defiant anti-censorship statement at a moment when the White House was exerting unprecedented pressure on media companies. South Park's return was glorious and hilarious until, at least for me, it wasn't. Over the next 9 episodes, every goon in Trump world was taken down a notch. J.D. Vance, Charlie Kirk, Kristi Noem, Melania, Don Jr., Peter Thiel, Pete Hegseth, Pam Bondi, Stephen Miller, Brendan Carr, Dan Scavino? Who the hell is Dan Scavino? Yes, South Park has been criticizing politicians and Trump for years, but this time it hit different. This time it felt like, wow, this is only funny if you're addicted to the news cycle. And catering only to people with news brain is an unfortunate line for this show, my favorite show to cross. At one point, the boys even acknowledge the problem.
South Park sucks now?
Yeah, everyone knows it. South Park sucks now. And it's because of all this political shit.
But Trey kept going. And on one level, I get it. If he stopped, it might look like he caved to political intimidation and that precious free speech victory would feel compromised. However, that wasn't his reasoning. In an interview with the New York Times, Trey said, "It's not that we got all political, it's that politics became pop culture." Even though Trey is one of my idols, this rubbed me the wrong way. Perhaps he means that we live in a fragmented media landscape where politics is the last vestige of monocultural entertainment. But even if that's the case, which I'm not convinced it is, the equating of culture and politics is not something we should lean into or affirm. So about 6 episodes in, I stopped watching and releasing analysis videos because it felt like the show was no longer serving fans of irreverent comedy or even social satire. Now it was serving a much larger and sadly growing demographic, political hobbyists. When you relent that politics has become pop culture, you enter the realm of political hobbyism, and political hobbyism is not politics. It doesn't build power, it doesn't change institutions, and it doesn't strengthen democracy. In fact, it does the opposite. And I'd argue that a fundamental element of South Park has always been its suspicion of the marriage between culture and politics. And to collapse the two might just betray the very spirit of the show. Let's dive in. But first, a rapid-fire recap of the episodes. Trump, now more Saddam Hussein than Mr. Garrison, is back in office, and the national vibe has shifted accordingly. PC Principal has rebranded as Power Christian Principal, and Jesus is forcibly inserted back into school as the new counselor, where he slowly mutates into a caricature of MAGA-era postmodern Christianity. Satan reveals that he's pregnant with Trump's butt baby, while Minnie Vance works tirelessly to prevent the birth, fearing it would derail his ascent as Trump's successor. Randy loses Tegrity Farms after a bout of AI-induced psychosis, Trump begins an affair with Vance, and Stan has to move in with Grandpa. In the end, the butt baby Epsteins himself in the womb, Jesus has a come to Jesus moment, and Stan gets his old house back. The end. Your political preferences are premium data that enable corporations to map your viewing habits and then sell that profile to advertisers. That's why I keep my data as private as possible and why I've been using today's sponsor, Venice. Venice is AI built for people who care about free inquiry and anonymity. You don't even have to make a profile. Venice lets you access the world's leading models anonymously by submitting generations on your behalf, so they're never tied to your identity. Your conversations are encrypted and stored only on your device, so nobody has access to your conversations. Something I love using AI for is book recommendations, but I hate the idea of my reading habits ending up on some advertiser's database or a political party's targeting file. With Venice, everything is completely private. I can switch models, ask questions, generate images, all privately and without censorship. So if you want to use AI without handing your personal information to corporations or the government, check out Venice.ai. Get 20% off a pro plan at Venice.ai/Jared Bauer with the code Jared Bauer. And now back to the show. So what is political hobbyism? In his book Politics is for Power, political scientist Eitan Hersh defines it as obsessive news following, constant online argumentation, slacktivism, and the compulsive production of hot takes in response to every daily flare-up. It's marked by hyper-emotional engagement and obsession with national politics, all sustained by shallow, technologically mediated activities that satisfy the short-term emotional needs of participants. Hobbyists like to justify their behavior with claims like, I'm staying informed, I'm raising awareness, or I'm holding power accountable, but Hersh's work builds a compelling case that it's more psychological addiction cosplaying as moral responsibility. At one point in the book, Hersh discusses a study about consumers of fake news. It turns out the majority of people who consume fake news aren't the people who actually believe it. It's the hobbyists who, after having scraped all the dopamine from the mainstream headlines, have to go for the harder stuff. It's pure degen behavior. Every time some D-list Trump goon came on screen, every time the show careened into the scandalous Drudge Report headline of the week, Don Jr.'s consultancy business, Pete Hegseth's social media content, it felt like this was the demographic the show was catering to, those who experience politics primarily through a daily technologically mediated dopamine loop. But thing is, that's not politics, that's culture. Politics is doing the hard work of canvassing, building party organizations, negotiating, and compromising in order to gain power. And one of Hersh's central arguments is that politics has gotten worse precisely because we've mistaken cultural signaling for political action. When politics becomes culture, we start demanding drama instead of competence, slacktivism flourishes, and cooperation across party lines becomes impossible. And what made this season especially frustrating is that the show has spent decades skewering these dynamics. Long before political hobbyism had a name, South Park was relentlessly suspicious of its defining traits: symbolic politics, moral grandstanding, and the substitution of expression for action.
So much better here with intellectuals, isn't it, boys?
A key feature of political hobbyism is that its commitment to consciousness raising is less about working for the common good and more about emotional payoff and personal expression.
New car? Yeah, it's a hybrid. I just couldn't sit back and be a part of destroying the Earth anymore.
Season 10's Smug Alert centers on the sudden popularity of hybrid cars and the cultural posturing that comes with them. What begins as Gerald's effort to raise awareness,
Look, I'm just trying to make the people of South Park aware of a very serious problem.
evolves into him moving the family to San Francisco so he can be among the people who enjoy expressive politics as much as he does.
We're a little more progressive and ahead of the curve here in San Francisco.
So important is cultural expression that eventually it undermines the stated political goal. The collective, flatulent smugness manifests as a toxic cloud that undoes all the environmental progress they congratulated themselves for, and then some. After the smug threat is neutralized, Kyle admits that hybrid cars are essential to a healthy environment.
Look, hybrid cars are important. They may even save our planet one day.
If only people could drive hybrid cars without the moral posturing, but they can't.
You mean drive in hybrids, but not act like we're better than everyone else because of it?
Yeah!
I'm not ready.
I don't think I can do it either.
It's simply asking too much.
Clean energy is an urgent political issue, but it's the cultural expressive payoffs that really motivate engagement. When you strip away the cultural signaling, the political commitment collapses. Another element of political hobbyism is that it's distinct from political action. Politics is about doing, not feeling good. That's just culture.
Cleaning the earth is a mighty big chore. We're spreading awareness like never before.
In the season 3 episode Rainforest Schmain Forest, the boys are forced to join an activist choir and travel to Costa Rica to raise awareness about saving the rainforest.
Did you know over 10,000 acres of rainforest are bulldozed every year?
The leader, Miss Stevens, is the archetypal political hobbyist. Her group is performative, literally as in they sing songs, and she arrives in Central America armed with all the fashionable platitudes of the era. Her group paints the rainforest as a helpless victim in need of saving.
The rainforest is very delicate. and we must take steps to protect it.
She romanticizes the native tribe as peaceful and benevolent.
The Yanagapa are gentle, native people that live in the rainforest.
And even equates her moral posturing with the struggle of a rebel guerrilla faction.
We are fighters, just like you.
But turns out the reality isn't anything like the hobbyist fantasy. The rainforest is far from fragile, it's brutal.
That fragile flower is very delicate, okay?
The natives aren't so civilized.
Look how they live in peace with all living things. Run for your lives, children!
Holy crap!
And the actual political actors, the People's Army risking their lives, are nothing like Miss Stevens.
You white Americans make me sick. You waste food, oil, and everything else because you're so rich, and then you tell the rest of the world to save the rainforest because you like its pretty flowers.
Faced with reality, Miss Stevens eventually breaks.
I was wrong! The rainforest! I hate it! I hate it!
And in the end, doesn't care at all.
I hate the rainforest! You go right ahead and plow down this whole thing!
Political hobbyists love the idea of a cause, but not the reality of it. The aesthetic of saving the rainforest is compelling, but actually facing its dangers, engaging with local people, and navigating real political conflict is something else entirely. Moral posturing from a distance is a luxury hobby, and at least to me, South Park is at its best when it sides with and caters to the people who don't have that luxury.
We work and we make cigarettes all highty-lighty day, so folks can get a breaky from their stressful lighty lives and relaxy with the cigarettes we make all day and night.
In Season 7's Butt Out, the kids take up smoking to ensure they don't become like a cringe anti-smoking troop and accidentally burn down the school. This attracts the attention of the wildly unhealthy Rob Reiner, who catastrophizes about the effects of smoking and is willing to do anything, including killing Cartman, to ban cigarettes in South Park.
We're gonna use these children to bring the tobacco company down!
The episode wasn't just about the irony of a man who may have an overeating problem lecturing others about unhealthy behavior, but how using social problems as a platform for moral grandstanding is very much a luxury pastime, a favorite of the Hollywood elite. At one point, Reiner berates a man for smoking in a bar.
Look, man, I work 14 hours a day at the sawmill. I just got off work and I need to relax.
Well, when I relax, I just go to my vacation house in Hawaii.
In some ways, this was hard to revisit because Rob Reiner wasn't a political hobbyist. He actually did put in the work and was a goated director, RIP. But what always spoke to me about this episode is it's a perfect example of the show taking the side of the people that Hollywood has forgotten about culturally. The people who don't worship celebrities, who see them as too overpaid and overprotected to moralize about how others cope with life. If smoking functions as a psychological fixation for people with hard lives, then political hobbyism is a psychological fixation for people with easy ones. Because, as Hirsch's analysis revealed, the people most affected by politics, i.e. the working poor, are not the ones obsessing over it. They don't have the time or energy to live inside the news cycle. Only people with relatively comfortable lives can treat a cigarette, a tweet, or a cable news scandal as a crisis. The point is, I promise you there are people working 2 jobs right now that don't know Pete Hegseth makes online content like a teenager, or that the Attorney General has been sucking up to the president, but loved Jennifer Lopez singing about tacos and burritos. Making fun of political hobbyism is very South Park. Feeding it isn't. And what's most disappointing is that the show had been on a streak of focusing on class issues more recently. In the pandemic special, Randy is raking in cash at Tegrity Farms.
We've shut down and people have lost their businesses, lost their livelihoods. I also own a small business, and I have to say, I'm actually doing pretty good.
Even seizing the opportunity to sell a special strain while everyone else toils through trying times.
People are dying, Randy, and all you can think about is making a special about it?
This is a thinly veiled confession from Trey that as his net worth exceeds 10 figures, he struggles with the guilt of his class privilege. In a time of widespread struggle, he's making more money than ever, and the only thing he can offer is a comedy special. Here, as always, he wants to help the working poor. A whole season about weekly political flare-ups is not that. Or in the Ozempic special, Cartman drops what is probably the best South Park line in the last decade.
Rich people get Ozempic, poor people get body positivity.
Elites get material results, everyone else gets fun narratives. Another way to say this is to draw from another seminal work about the intersection of politics and cultural expression, Murray Edelman's 1985 book, The Symbolic Uses of Politics, in which he claimed, and I'm paraphrasing, the disorganized masses get symbolic reassurances, elites organize and get results. Edelman's point was, for most, politics is a series of rituals, symbols, and dramas that help people cope with uncertainty, while actual decision-making and resource allocation is decided by these small group of elites who have the time and means to drive their agenda. And so, as long as the rich keep feeding people drama and narrative, the process can hum along. Political hobbyism is that drama, the result of conflating politics and culture. It's a leisure activity that, according to Hirsch, is disproportionately taken up by upper middle class educated white men. Basically, Gregory. And this was never a show for Gregory. Political hobbyism neither helps the demographic the people of South Park represent, nor does it speak to the people that South Park has historically defended. It's not what they spend their time caring about. There's a popular strain of thought that after a certain age, people should grow out of their silly fandom. They should stop collecting Pokemon cards, stop painting Warhammer figures, stop playing video games, stop watching anime, and grow up. Focus on more serious things like the news of the day. But, as Hirsch argues, there's no meaningful difference. Both political hobbyism and fandoms are inwardly focused leisure activities that people adopt purely for psychological reasons. So don't wear your awareness of daily scandals as virtuous, don't cast your political anxiety as some kind of martyrdom, and don't condemn gaming at 40 as indulgent and trivial. Neither you nor Trey need to feel the obligation to focus only on politics. Yes, proving that political free speech still exists is super important. I'm not saying lay off Trump. God knows he deserves the smoke. Just maybe don't make it every episode. Maybe don't dive headfirst into the D-list of MAGA goonery. Maybe don't write plots that are only funny if you check Drudge Report 100 times a day. It narrows the audience, dulls the humor, and I'd argue betrays the core ethos of the show. Now, it could be argued that the things South Park lampooned before, anti-smoking activism, saving the rainforest, weren't the emergency that the crises of today are. And maybe that's true. But if Trey really believes that, then his greatest capacity to make a difference isn't his writing talent, it's his wealth. As a billionaire, he's one of the few people who actually has a significant finger to lift. He's got the time, he's got the resources, he's got the leverage. Because, lest we forget, in the South Park movie, Wendy dumps Gregory because she realizes she was just swept up in his drama. Stan, on the other hand, took action. Stan started La Resistance. Stan got himself blown up. Stan led the team to liberate Terrence and Phillip. Gregory did culture. Stan did politics.
Oh, Stan, I never really cared for Gregory. You didn't? No, dude, Gregory. Him right in the ear. Yay!
Hey, y'all, thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out Venice.ai. You can get 20% off a pro plan at Venice.ai/Jared Bauer with the code Jared Bauer. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel because the next video I got coming up is on The Exorcist. Thanks again, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.